Hi. So today, um, I thought we would review some grammar things with English. I know I did a lot of this in the beginning of the year, but I thought we would just go over these just really quickly, just as kind of the last lesson of the week before the holiday break, which will be 2 weeks. So you won't have lessons next week or the week after, but then they'll start back up again. So I'll start sending you more videos again. Um, so I thought we would talk about the simple present today. So we know verbs are action words, present means in the moment. So I know that this might be really easy, but we're going to go through it kind of quickly to be helpful. So verbs are action words. We're talking about the present. You know this. Um, and then, uh, so when we use the simple present, we keep the verb the same, the simple form, right? So go is I go home at 3, and we use the present verb to let somebody know that we do it a lot. They make dinner, meaning they make dinner a lot instead of going out and buying dinner. So uh, you keep the verb present in simple present. You keep it the most simple way. We don't add ing, you don't add ed, you don't do any of that. Um, I come home at 3 means that it happens a lot. I come home at 3 is different from saying I am coming home at 3. And it's different because, right, simple present tells people I do this a lot. But if you say I am coming home at 3, which is the continuous, right? It's the progressive, the present progressive. When we use that, we're saying that in I'm planning on doing that for this one time, instead of I come home at 3, meaning my normal schedule is to come home at 3. Um, so you don't need to add anything to make uh, the verb present in simple present. But if you talk about somebody or something else, and there's one of them, um, you add the S sound at the end. So if you say, I come home at 3, you say you come home at 3, we come home at 3, they come home at 3. Those are all, you don't need to add anything. But in English, we say he comes home at 3. She comes home at 3. It comes home at 3. So in English, we add an S sound at the end of the verb. Comes, goes, drives. We put it at the end of the verb when we're talking about another person that is not ourself, and there's only one of them, right? So that's why when we're going to use the S. So I made a chart that just kind of shows you that if it's singular, one person or thing, I, you use walk. If you use you, the word you don't need to add an S. You just do the simple verb, right? Like walk. But if you use he, she, or it, you need to add an S because you're talking about another person that's only one of them, or another thing, right? It can be a thing. Bus is a thing. So you'd say, oh, I take the bus. It leaves at 7. When you say it, you're talking about the bus. But you would use, it leaves at 7. You put an S at the end. And then plural is more than one. We walk, they walk. So really simple. Just remember that if you're talking about another person and there's only one of them, or another thing and there's only one of them, you need to add an S at the end of the verb. So you could say, oh, my coworker, right? So that's one person and it's not you. My coworker leave at 6, or my coworker leaves at 6. So you would use my coworker leaves at 6. We're not going to do this bit, but I thought we could go over, putting the S at the end again. So, and when you're using simple present tense, you have the subject, right? So that's going to be I, they, we, he, she, it. Or you could, instead of saying a pronoun, you can use the name of somebody, what it's called, right? So instead of saying it was late, you could say the bus was late, right? Well, I guess that's past tense. Um, you know, the bus drives slow. It drives slow. You have the subject, the verb, and then the rest of the sentence. So, you know, we drive to work, they drive to work, I drive to work, he drives to work, she drives to work, or it drives to work, which you wouldn't really use because you only use it if it's like, you can use it for animals or you can use it for things that aren't alive. So you wouldn't say like it drives to work, really. If you don't know if the person is a he or a she, then like you don't know who they are or what they identify as, you can just say they. They drive to work. They, we use for plural in English, but we also use it when we're talking about, you know, people that we don't know if they're a he or a she, or if we, it's a lot of different kinds of people. It's lots of he's and lots of she's all mixed together. You just say they. So it's easy, you know, they drive to work, which is, you're probably thinking like that doesn't work because I'm only thinking of one other person. But in English, the polite way is to just refer to people as they if you don't know. So more practice. I see family every day. She sees family every day. They come home at 7. He comes home at 7, right? When we add do not, to make it negative, right? I do not, and then you say the verb. Really easy. I do not take the bus, or you can say don't, right? I don't take the bus. You do not, you know, take the bus. You don't take the bus. So all you're doing is you take the word do and not, right? And you put it in between the subject and the verb, right? Who you're talking about and the action that you're talking about. And you just put do not, and that lets people know it's negative. They do not come home at 8. We do not make the beds today. It's all just, you know, really simple, just putting in do not. But if, remember how we had to put the S at the end of a verb if we are talking about somebody that's only one of them or one thing and it's not us. So she, he, or it. She does not get the groceries, right? She does not get the groceries. She doesn't get the groceries. That's the other one. So instead of saying do not, we say does not. We put it's spelled with an ES and it sounds like a Z, but you're saying, you know, she does not get the groceries. She doesn't get the groceries. He does not live with me. He doesn't live with me. So when you're making it a negative, instead of um instead of putting the S like oh, there was this here. It's got little arrows. So instead of putting the S on the verb right here, you put it in the do, right? The do part. Does not. Instead of saying do, we put a does. So when you make questions, instead of putting the do in between the subject and the verb, like I do make dinner tonight, that doesn't work in English. So when we make it a question, we move the do part to the beginning of the sentence, in front of everything. So do I make dinner tonight? That's how you make it a question. Do you make dinner tonight? Do we take the tracks tomorrow? Do we come tomorrow? Do they come tomorrow? Do they come to work tomorrow? So when you're asking the question, all you do is put the do at the beginning and say the sentence that you want to know about, right? So we take the tracks tomorrow. But if you're like, oh, I don't know, you can ask somebody, do we take the tracks tomorrow, right? When you make questions with she, he, or it, right, we put the S at the end. So instead of do, we say does. Does she need help today? Does he have a new schedule? Does it look cold outside? These are all things, you know, you can say. Then the other thing about these questions, when you ask a question in the simple present tense, do we come to work tomorrow? You can answer the question with a yes or a no. In English, we call these yes, no questions. Really easy to remember. They're questions that you don't have to explain something. You're just saying yes or no. Because if somebody says, what time do we leave today? You can't just say yes, right? Because they're asking what time. They need to know a time. So you say, oh, we're leaving at 4. But if if somebody asks, do we leave early today? They're not asking for a time. You can say yes or no. So do you have your ID badge? You can say, yeah, yes, I have it. You don't have to say, I have it right here in my pocket. They're asking, do you have your ID badge? And you say, yes. Does she need help today? No. You just can say yes or no. So I come to work tomorrow. She comes to work tomorrow, right? We put the yes at the end. I do not come to work tomorrow. That's putting the do not, right? So this part, I come to work tomorrow, we just have the simple present verb, and it says, I come to work tomorrow. She comes to work tomorrow. I do not come to work tomorrow. Do I come to work tomorrow? And you make it into a question. So you'll see that, you know, here, let me just show you. So you have, you know, for the simple present tense just by itself, we just have that simple present tense verb right there. If we use, you know, he, she, or it, we just add the S. She comes to work tomorrow. When we want to say do not, we want to make it negative. I do not come to work tomorrow. All we do is we add that little bit right here, do not, in between the subject and the verb that we say. Do I come to work tomorrow? The simple present verb is right there just fine. And the do is put at the beginning of the sentence, and we get rid of the not to make it a question. So what we do often, verbs in the present. Why we can use this to describe people, right? Or describe things, right? By talking about what somebody does a lot. So when we say your sister, and the verb we want to use is talk very fast, we can't say in English, right? Your sister talk very fast. Since we said your sister is she. We can replace your sister with she, right? She, and since it's a she, we know we put an S at the end. So she talks very fast, or your sister talks very fast. My brother and I speak Spanish. So would this one be my brother and I speaks Spanish? Well, this one can be replaced with we. My brother and I, we speak Spanish. So we don't need to add an S. They live in Los Angeles. Do we add an S? We're talking about, you know, other people, right? They live in Los Angeles. Rosa work a lot. Well, it's going to be Rosa works a lot because Rosa is she, right? So she needs an S at the end. Rosa works a lot. She works a lot. So now we want to turn it into questions. Your sister talks very fast. Your sister does not talk very fast. So we turned it into a negative, right? Your sister does not talk very fast. Your sister, you know, or saying your sister doesn't talk very fast. And to turn it into a question, does your sister talk very fast? Let me turn it into a question. Now, my brother and I speak Spanish. How do we make this into a negative? And I'll just give you a minute to say it out loud. My brother and I do not speak Spanish, right? My brother and I don't speak Spanish. That's another thing that you can say. Or to turn it into a question, do my brother and I speak Spanish? Which I don't know why you would ask that, but it's how you would turn it into a question. They live in Los Angeles. So how would we turn it into a negative? They, and we add do not in between it, they do not live in Los Angeles. Or you could say, they don't live in Los Angeles. How would you turn it into a question? Do they live in Los Angeles? Yep. Rosa works a lot. How do we make it into a negative? Rosa does not work a lot. Or Rosa doesn't work a lot. But we all know that Rosa works a lot. And does Rosa work a lot? That's the question. How you make a question. You put does. You just put the does right at the beginning, right here. So does Rosa work a lot? We have a lot of meetings. How would you make it negative? Right? Something that happens all the time. We do not have a lot of meetings. So we don't have meetings a lot, right? We don't have a lot of meetings. The vacuum breaks a lot. Then the question, do we have a lot of meetings? The vacuum does not break a lot, or the vacuum doesn't break a lot. But to turn it into a question, does the vacuum break a lot? Now, this part that I wanted to do is about spelling. When we spell these, it changes. Now, this is kind of advanced, so you don't need to watch this if it confuses you, or if you get confused, that's okay. So this is help to spell verbs that end in S. So verbs that end in Y, like study, I study English, you change the Y to an I. So instead of saying, spelling study, S-T-U-D-Y, you change it to an I, right? And then you add ES. So instead of saying, she studies every day with a Y in it, it's an I. She studies every day. So that's if it ends in a Y. If the verb A-E-I-O-U is before a Y, like stay, right? So we have a Y at the end. It wouldn't be stays with an I, right? That wouldn't be right. We have to look before it. If it is an A, an E, an I, O, or a U, we just have to add an S at the end. Really easy, really easy. So stays is just S-T-A-Y with an S at the end. He stays in his room. Now, the next bit, if O-S-H-C-H-S is at the end of the verb, for example, in the verb teach, right? Teach, I'm trying to think another verb, teach, let's see, fish. Teach or fish, like fishing, like the verb fish, not the word fish, like talking about the animal, or the word go, or do, right? You add an ES to the end of the word. So this is all you have to add. You don't have to change any of them. You just add an ES. So you would say she teaches English, or goes. Julia goes to work on Mondays. You just add an ES. She does hard work. That's all you got to do. The next part, do not use am, is, are, was, or were before the verb if you're using simple present tense, right? I am walk to school. No, I walk to school. We don't need the am. We don't need it to help us. because we're not using the present continuous, right? Or the past continuous. We don't need it there. We don't need was, because was is the past. So we don't use it. She lives in Utah. Nope, we get rid of it. She lives in Utah. Oh, I already put X's on it. She lives in Utah. He takes the bus, or takes the bus. We would just say he takes the bus, because if you say he takes the bus, it's not the right grammar, because when you're using the simple present tense, they do it a lot. You say he takes the bus. They are work during the week. Nope, get rid of the are. They work during the week. We were take the tracks. You just say we take the tracks, right? Because you want to make it simple present tense. Now, if you use were because you're trying to make it past tense, then you use different orders, right? So next one that we're going to do is pronunciation. So for this one, the pronunciation is just how to say the words. And in English, the S can make 3 sounds after a verb in the present tense. So the S sound in English, when it's coming at the end of a verb, it can make 3 different sounds. And in English, the way that we pronounce it, right, as a z or a es, teaches, lives, works, it doesn't change what the word means or what tense it is, right? If we're talking about the past, present, or future, it's just how it sounds. It's just how we say it. But in English, right, we can make the S sound at the end of a verb into a S sound, like in snake. My son works downtown. You can make it a Z sound. It can, like in zebra, my daughter lives in California. But it also can make a es sound, like a Z and an E. So easy, right? She teaches, is, right? She teaches. So this is kind of a lot of practice to go through. But it's all the different ways that you can say, these are all like S's and Z sounds. So they go to English class. You would say, he goes. So it'd be like a Z sound. He goes to English class. And there's some more. I don't really have a place to put my video, my face. But we'll do some reading practice real quick where we go through, I work at the Huntsman Cancer Institute. I work from 7 to 3. My friend works, so works makes a s sound, works. She works from 10 to 6. She gets lunch from the cafeteria. If you say my mom teaches, it's going to be an es, teach es, she teaches. But if you say lives, my dad lives in Argentina, lives, it's a z sound instead of a s sound. And the difference between a s and a z sound in English is the s sound is just pushing air through your mouth, whereas the z sound is it's like you're humming, right? You make a sound in your throat, your vocal cords, and you go zzz. So do that real quick where you put your hand on your throat and say s, s, s. It's not really vibrating, huh? But when you go zzz, it vibrates, like it moves. You can feel it, right? You can feel the hum. So that's how you know if you're saying it right. She works. There should be no buzzing, right? There should be no vibrating. But if you say, oh, she lives, she lives, she lives, that made a buzz sound, right? And teaches is the same. It's going to make a little buzz sound. So that's it. for today. The next is about simple past. Um, so that's it for today. I know this was kind of a quick review, but I just wanted to go over it again just because learning how to spell, how to pronounce, those are all important too. And sometimes it's good to get a refresher on it, right? Refresh meaning you do it again so you can remember it better. And so that's it for today.